This is Truth Pop.
You know how it feels when you walk into a brand new vehicle and that new car smell just takes over, or you move to a new city and you're so excited about the adventure and just the opportunities that await you. There's something really special about entering into something new, the new slate, the chance to begin again. That new relationship where you have the sunshine and rainbows and you're just enjoying the honeymoon phase. But what do you do after the newness wears away? How do you stay committed to something that you've already decided you're going to try to do? It's what we want to talk about, especially when it comes to prayer. How do you stay committed to prayer even when you're not feeling that grace, you're not feeling God's love day in and day out? How do you still be intentional by committing yourself to daily prayer habits?
This is Truth Pop, giving you a Catholic take on faith and culture. I'm Kathy, he's Jake. We are a young adult married couple helping you to live out your faith in modern day culture. Prayer is definitely something that sometimes there are seasons in my life when it's really easy and I feel so close to God. And then other times it's really difficult and I almost have to force myself to pray.
During Lent, you and I can both relate to this sense of intentionality, right? Where both of us set really high goals for this Lent in particular, where we were like, okay, we're going to make these sacrifices. We're going to try to just watch certain religious TV shows and stay away from most stuff on Hulu. And, we're really just going to try to detach ourselves from the world. And yet we found that as soon as Easter hit, it was like kind of a sugar binge. It was a Hulu binge. And it was the exact opposite of what we were trying to do during the Lenten season. And I think that kind of also went along with prayer, where both of us just found it a lot more difficult to take that time to pray, especially like in the morning. When I wake up in the morning, I got a lot of things on my mind, and prayer is not oftentimes that first thing that I've been turning to. So what is it that we can do to really lay out a plan and a roadmap to make sure that even when we're not feeling like we want to pray, even when we're not feeling like, oh, this is amazing, I'm getting all these graces, all this consolation, like how do we stay true to a life of prayer?
It's so easy to pray when we first start getting into our faith. I remember when I first started really owning my faith and really embracing my faith, it was so easy for me to just feel so close to God and like really get to know him and really want to pray. And I was really motivated. But as time went on, there have been times in my life where it's been hard and I really don't feel close to God. Like even right now, I really struggle feeling that grace from God, especially when, asking him over and over again for the same thing and just not hearing his voice and not having my prayers answered. How do we stay committed to prayer? Because we know it's important. We know we should be doing it, but how do we do it when we don't feel like we're getting anything out of it?
I think it gets back to the fundamental aspect of what prayer really is, right? Like prayer isn't just for us. Yeah, yes, it's for our sanctification, but I think sometimes our sanctification means doing things that are hard and doing things for the love of God and not just for the love of ourselves. So why do we turn to prayer? Is it just because we're feeling good and we're feeling close to God? Well, that's only going to get us to a certain point. I talked to someone who's been thinking about becoming Catholic, and she was encouraged to go to sit in front of the Blessed Sacrament and go to adoration. And she's like, am I supposed to feel something every time? And I was like, here's the good news. No, you're not. Like, it is okay if you're sitting in adoration or praying the rosary and your mind starts to wander. Because ultimately, I think what we're doing is we're gesturing with our hands when we hold the beads and when we physically go in front of Jesus, in front of the Blessed Sacrament, we're telling him through our actions, not just our words, that we love him. And that even if we're not feeling it, it's still an important thing to do. And God honors that sometimes even more than he would if we're actually feeling good and feeling consolation. Like, that matters to Jesus. Like, think about a parent. You probably don't feel like showing up for your kids at 3 a.m., right? And they're crying and they need, to be fed. Or just think about, if you don't feel like making dinner at night, well, you still show up for your kids. You show up for your family, for those commitments you've made, even when it doesn't feel new. Even when there's a million other things you'd like to do, God really honors the fact that you show up every single day. And Jesus is our best friend. He is that person who is always there for us. How can we be there for him? How can we console his heart? How can we show him that he's important to us even when we're not the ones that are benefiting from it? What was it, babe, that, one of our good friends who's a seminarian laid out 3 simple things to remember when it comes to consistency in prayer?
Yeah, you actually said 2 of the 3 points.
So I got 2 out of 3 on the test?
Yeah, when you said simple, that's the first point. Keep it simple. You don't have to overcomplicate prayers. Like, sometimes all we can give God is just a simple prayer from the heart. The next point he said was something you had just mentioned: consistency. Pray at the same time every day in the same place. Continue to do it even when you don't feel like doing it. And then the last point is quiet. Just make sure that you're in a place where you have that environment where you can enter into that contemplative state and really connect with God. Because I think it was Father Mike that once said, prayer does not help your relationship with God. Prayer is your relationship with God. So if you don't pray, you are not in relationship with God.
So basically, it's like someone saying, "Oh, I'm breathing today." Well, great. You don't really think about breathing. I mean, I'm so inspired by people who can find ways to make everything a prayer. Like, even if they're not speaking words, they're doing that difficult task. And they say, "God, this is for you. I'm going to do this right here. This is a prayer for you." So again, it's an action. I love that idea, babe, of having a prayer spot, because then you're really able to distract yourself from everything else. So like you kind of enter into that mode, like, okay, this is time for prayer. So your mind, your spirit, your body has already entered into that mode then. Like I try to make that where my nightstand is. Like I have a bunch of like statues of Jesus and just prayer books. And I really like that because it's really a cozy spot where I feel God's love a little bit more. And I think that really could benefit each and every single one of us. Like, okay, like now it's time to pray. I'm like literally going to turn away from my work desk now and focus on the Lord. And I love the idea of simplicity too, because like anything else, it's so tempting to want to overcomplicate this, to think that we have to look at it as this scientific algorithm of like, okay, like am I praying right? Am I saying the Hail Mary? Well, prayer is just relationship with God. Like it's just spending time with him. It's like you're going out with a friend and having a cup of coffee. You don't need to overcomplicate that. So, okay, like next week you start with one prayer and then you build on from there. The next week after that, maybe you try this other prayer. Definitely don't burn yourself out with a million different things you want to do, because then, well, maybe you'll miss one day and then you'll think to yourself, never mind, I'm not going to do it again. Like, God doesn't want you to approach it from that point of view. He just wants you to approach it as you're just entering into a loving conversation with the one who loves you the most. And Jesus loves to hear from you, to hear how your day is going. So even if you just want to have a conversation with him, just say, God, like I'm struggling right now. Can you help me? Like that is prayer. That is something that can propel you to the next level of Catholic living. Because it can remind you that you're not doing this thing alone, that God is with you. Even when you don't feel like he's walking next to you, he's always there.
This is Truth Pop.